everybody, Michael Kunman coming to you for Golf Sales Australia. Just a quick video in relation, or just following on from our last one, which was on wedge lofts, working on trying to ensure that we get about 4 to 6 degrees per wedge to ensure a good distance gapping. Now we're going to have a brief chat about wedge bounce. So what is wedge bounce and how do course factors influence what wedge bounces are going to be best for us. So first and foremost, what is bounce? Now bounce angles are basically the angle between the leading edge of the club, which is the sharp part at the front, and the trailing edge of the club. If we drew an angle between that, that is what's classified as bounce angle. Now we can have low bounce angles, which are 4 to 6 degrees, and we can have high bounce angles, which are 12 to 14 degrees. Now where these differ and why it's actually beneficial to your game is because, let's say for instance sakes, you're a golfer that plays at a link style course, so you play firm fast fairways, fairly firm bunkers. Now we need a wedge or wedges that have fairly low bounce angles. Now the reason being is because when we hit those shots off those hard fairways, we need to ensure that leading edge actually gets under that golf ball to get the golf ball to go where we want it to be. Now if we had a wedge like this one here, this is a new Titleist SM8 wedge. This has got 60 degrees with 12 degrees bounce. Now if we had this and set it on the ground, the leading edge sits up slightly. It sits slightly up off the ground. If we are on firm fast fairways, we are going to struggle to get that leading edge under the golf ball. The only way we could is potentially manipulating a little bit, which is fine if you want to do that, but it makes things quite difficult and a little bit inconsistent. So firm fast fairways, generally lower bounce angles are good for it, and also firm bunkers. Now let's say for instance sakes we play a course that's fairly soft. So especially coming into winter at the moment here in Australia, soft fairways, soft green surrounds, and generally some soft bunkers as well. So we need clubs, wedges specifically, with more bounce. Now the reason for that is because, let's say for instance sakes we're getting on, we've hit a nice shot, it's just missed the green, we've got a little soft patch or soft area, and we've got a 60 degree wedge in our hand with 4 degrees bounce. Now as I was saying, there's not much angle between there, and the leading edge doesn't sit up very much. So what's going to happen is we're going to set up, the leading edge is going to be fairly flush with the ground, we're going to work that club back and come through, and that leading edge is going to be fairly sharp. It's going to dig into that ground like a knife, which is those ones that you get, boom, those little drop kicks, especially when you're chipping, the ball pretty much goes nowhere on those soft surfaces. So we need to ensure that we have wedges that have a decent amount of bounce to incorporate that. So they're not going to get stuck in the mud. We can use bounce. A lot of times people say bounce is your friend, which it definitely can be depending on the courses you're playing and also your technique as well. So don't ever be afraid of bounce, but always look into what course that you play most regularly to help with your selection. Now, in between those, so we've got 4 to 6 degrees for our low bounce, 12 to 14 for our high bounce. We've also got 8 to 10 degrees, which is just the intermediate range. So not too soft, not too firm. We can select wedges that help us with our game going forward. Now, when it comes to selecting your wedges, now I've got a couple here over on the left. So these are again all the SM8 wedges. I've got a 60 and 12, so 60 degree wedge with 12 degrees bounce. I've got a 52 and 8 degree bounce, a 56 and 8, and also a 46 and 10. Now these come in a variety of different bounce angles, and when you're choosing these, you don't have to stick with the same bounce angle on every wedge. You can say have your 50 degree at 10 degree bounce, you can have your 54 at 8, and you can have your 60 at 6. So what you've now got in your bag are 3 different wedges with 3 different bounce angles, which can give you 3 different shots around the green. So if you're on a firm area when you're going for a chip, you can use the club that has lower bounce. If you're in a nice soft area on the next hole, a little bit lower, sits a little bit lower, there's been a little bit of rain in that little area, and it's a bit softer, you can take out your wedge that has more bounce. So you can be a little more confident with it. It's not going to dig itself in as much, and be able to hit some really good consistent chip shots and get that golf ball closer to the hole. So as I said, technique does also play a role in this, but we're not going to talk about it today. That's just basically a brief overview on what bounce angle is and how it can affect you depending on the courses that you play consistently. So have a think about that. So whenever you're selecting your wedges, have a look through, make sure you choose wedges based on currently what courses you play regularly, and also we'll talk later about how technique affects this as well. So thank you very much for watching. Any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. Again, thank you very much. Speak soon.